Hello everyone and welcome back to your Windows introductory series. So today we're going to be learning about Windows settings. Without further ado, let's get started. Alright guys, so currently I am on a Windows 10 virtual machine. So a couple of things you want to know about Windows settings. So Windows settings is fairly new. It's kind of similar to the control panel, and the whole purpose behind it is that Windows has started migrating some of the settings from the control panel over to Windows settings. So you'll see some of the same settings that you would find in the control panel. One of the main differences though between Windows settings versus the control panel is that the control panel is more where you would go to find the security settings for your computer. Windows settings is more for like private users who want to customize their desktop. So there's a lot of information there's a lot of settings in there that you would use to maybe sync your Microsoft account to your computer. So that's kind of what you're going to see in Windows settings, but it's still worth looking at. So there are a couple of ways to open up Windows settings. One of them is to click on the Start button. And you can search for Windows settings, but the button's actually right here. Alright, so here's Windows settings. So I won't really go into all of these because not all of these are sections that you'll really need to be looking at, but I'll go through a couple of them. So here is the system settings. So there's quite a bit of stuff in here. First off, this is the display settings. So like if you want to add a second monitor, this is where you go. You could also change your orientation here, change the scale. Obviously though, I don't really want to change any of those settings right now. Here you can also see what apps and features you've installed onto your operating system. So you can see right here, there aren't any apps installed, but if there were apps installed, they would appear here, and they would also appear in the programs and features section. One of the things that you will notice about Windows is that a lot of times there are multiple ways to set a setting. So like apps, your app list, you could access that in apps and features and in programs and features. So you can also see there are the default apps here. This is a section that might be worth looking at. It tells you like your default music player, photo viewer, default web browser, so you can see what the default is for certain functions. You also have notifications. This, shows you like who can send you notifications on the lock screen. A lot of these settings are really just more customization of your operating system. So if you're just looking at how to make your operating system more secure, these aren't completely relevant. Here's the power settings. So like how long until your computer goes to sleep. This might be nice to, if you, so like if you want to save power, you might just set it to like 5 minutes. This just is the default storage locations for when you like download stuff. Where is it going to save? The other areas I'm not really going to go into. Here's where you would go to see what devices that you have installed. So the device manager is probably a better place to look at this information, but you can still access it here if you want to. You can see what printers you have installed, what devices you have connected, information about your mouse, just some spelling settings, and you have autoplay and then USB settings. You also have the network and internet. This is another important section that you might want to look at. So right here you can see this is the status of the network. I am connected through Ethernet right now, but from here you can also access the firewall and the network and sharing center. So these are both important sections that you are going to want to look at. You can also look at Ethernet settings, dial-up internet settings, which aren't really as... Here's where you would set up a VPN, which you don't really need to know how to do right now, but if you did want to, this is where you would go. And then you could look at your data usage and a proxy. So if you guys don't know what a proxy is, a proxy server is a server that connects you to the internet. So what that means is that when you try to connect to the internet, you're not going to be directly connected to the internet. When you send out that request, you're going to go from your it's going to go from your computer to the proxy server, and then the proxy server will connect you to the internet. There are a couple of benefits and downsides to this. The main benefit is when you're part of a large corporation or a large organization, they're going to want to probably monitor your internet activity and make sure that you're not visiting any websites that you shouldn't be. And so in that case, there would be a proxy server set up on you would be connected to a proxy server that would monitor your internet traffic. But for the most part, you're probably not going to want to have a proxy server set up, because someone could also use that for malicious purposes, where they could monitor your internet traffic, and you don't want that being done unless it's required by your organization. So this might be a section worth looking into, just to make sure that there's no proxy server set up. Another area that I'm not really going to go into, but that you can feel free to look at, is the personalization section of Windows settings. This is just where you would go to customize your computer. You can customize your desktop background, the color scheme of your operating system. If you want to add a theme, you could customize your lock screen. Another important section of Windows settings is your accounts. So this is the account section of Windows settings. There are multiple ways to add accounts to an operating system, so you're probably not going to want to use this way, but I'll still show it to you guys. So here you can just see information about your account. This gives you the option to sign in with a Microsoft account. For the most part, you're probably just going to want to stick with local accounts, but you can see here you could sync your email. So yeah, you could sync other accounts to your operating system. Let's see. This is where you would go to set some password settings. Like you could change your password, or you could use a PIN instead, which is a little bit more insecure. Picture password, that's interesting. So this one you might want off. So like you probably don't want your email address to be available on the sign-in screen. So that would mean when, if someone's walking by your computer, they could just, without even signing into your computer, they could already see information about your account. So you're probably going to want this turned off. This is where you would connect to your work and school accounts. So you're probably not going to need this. This is where you would go to add other accounts to the operating system. There is another way to do this, and I will be covering this in a later video, but this is one way to add more people to your computer. So here's the time and language setting. I'm not going to go into this right now. You'll probably, if you want to set these settings, you're probably going to want to do it in the control panel, but this is another way to set your time settings in your region. Ease of access, this is just more customization about how your operating system works. So like you could choose the voice for the narrator, just stuff like that. Probably not, it's not completely relevant to the security of your operating system, but if you wanted to customize it a little bit more, this is where you would go. Another pretty important section of Windows settings is the privacy section. So these are just some general privacy information. So you can just kind of read through this and see what you want turned on and off. You're probably going to want all of these turned off, mostly just because you're not really going to need them. But I mean, one thing is that you're probably not going to want apps on other devices to be able to open apps on this device. So you'll probably want these turned off, just because you don't want someone to connect to your computer and then start opening stuff. Here on this section, this is mostly just what you allow apps to have access to on your computer. So you could allow apps to have access to your location, your camera, microphone, notifications, account info, contacts. All of this you're probably just going to want turned off, because you don't want different apps on your computer to have access to your account information, unless there's something specific that you need it for, but you probably won't. This is probably the most important section that you're going to need to use for Windows settings. So if there is one section that you take away from this lesson, it's that you're going to want to know the Windows Update section, or just the Windows Update and Security section. So this is Windows Update. You can't really do this from the control panel. If you want to update, you kind of need to come here. I don't think you can do it from the control panel. So here you can look at your history for which updates were installed. You can see right now it's installing an update. It's kind of why it's running slow, but it's going to be doing this for a while. But you can change which hours the updates occur, restart options, some more advanced options for updating. And we'll go over this in another video that's more specific to Windows Update. But if you have some time, you might just want to come look through this section. Alright guys, that's it for this Windows lesson. So in today's lesson, we had covered Objective 2.2, which is to learn what Windows Settings is, as well as what it contains. If you guys do have any extra time, I strongly recommend that you go through Windows Settings and just kind of look to see what's available. Probably don't set anything, but if you go and just kind of look through it, you can probably get more comfortable navigating through Windows Settings. So, alright guys, thanks for watching.